sisters, come together now, come together now. It's time to help each other out, help each other out. It's time for transformation, time for healing. You've got the potential, you've got the power now. We can soar. Sisters overcoming and rising. Inspiration, interviews, and more. We can soar. A sisterhood for healing and empowerment. Join Dr. Stephanie and SOAR.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. We are here with the SOAR podcast, and I'm so excited because it's been a minute since we've been here. Happy Friday, Beverly. Thank you for joining us. And tonight we have a topic. We have a topic that I love. Beverly, can you hear me now? I think I was muted. You should be able to hear me now. But I am really excited about our topic tonight, which is the secret to making friends after age 40. And I have an amazing special guest with me. And I would like to tell you a little bit about my special guest. So, Sheranda, welcome to SOAR.
So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I love the music.
Thank you, thank you. My theme song, it
Yes.
gets me all ready. So, Sheranda Smith is a motivational speaker, certified health coach, and owner of Trailblazers Health and Wealth Incorporated. Today, her growing coaching network has supported hundreds of individuals to achieve healthy minds and bodies. But her impact doesn't always look this way. In October 2019, she hit a pivotal moment where everything was out of balance. She was physically unhealthy, financially broke, relationally poor, and mentally frayed. Simply put, she was a hot mess. However, after deciding to build holistic health, she found traction on the path to true wealth. Now she dedicates her life to guiding individuals and organizations to achieve financial independence, healthy minds and bodies, and thriving relationships. And she is just getting started. I love that. It's a well told story. I know uh, some of us were with me about a week ago where we did a webinar on storytelling. And this bio has all of the elements of a well told story. So let's just get into our topic for tonight, which is the secret to making friends after age 40. And I just wanted to start off with this quote that I found that I thought was so perfect for this topic. And the quote says, "We have more commitments, work, family, and children, making it really difficult for us to make time to give a new friendship, invest in ourselves, get to know a person, and more importantly, allow them to know us. All this, along with our inability to be vulnerable and trusting a new person in our lives, can make it difficult for us to make friends after the age of 40. Now, the reason I invited Sheranda, we were having a conversation one day, and I just told her, I'm like, you are really good at making friends and really establishing relationships. A lot of us have opportunities to meet people, but how many of us really nurture those connections and networks into true friendships? And Sheranda is one person who does that extremely well. Um, I hosted a retreat, and Sheranda was one of my business partners for the retreat in 2021. And I have watched her nurture those relationships with people that she had just met then into some blossoming friendships now. And so as I was watching this, I said, I just need to pick her brain and figure out what is your secret. So, what is your secret to developing these amazing friendships, meaningful friendships that you have after age 40?
Well, thank you for asking me to speak on the topic. And also thank you for hosting that retreat back in 2021 and asking me to be a business partner with you. And I was just really excited that working together allowed us to develop our friendship even on a deeper level. And then going to the retreat, it was really kind of organic, a lot of the relationships, because one, it was in a space that allowed for intimacy.
Mm.
So you do these great retreats where you're kind of, you're taken away from your typical environment and put in a more kind of like relaxing environment is what I would say. So you already setting a tone and like creating like a relaxing environment. And the people who are there are like-minded. So
Mm.
there are people who are interested in self-awareness, because a lot of this starts with, just becoming more self-aware in your own personal development. So people who are interested in developing themselves. And so they're open-minded. So I think like to make friends, you have to be a person who wants to make friends.
Mhm.
People do not want to make friends. They're like, I got enough friends, and like they're just not open to it. They're just like, it's too much going on, and that's fine. That's the space they're in. But you have to be intentional about it. So if you want to make friends, and I remember Stephanie. So Stephanie, we know each other first through Jack and Jill, Mother's Organization, and you were coming into our chapter from another chapter. And one of the things that you had one of your sons do was you wanted to make sure that he had spoken to at least 3 people that he had never talked to before and learned something.
Mhm.
So you kind of went into the environment with your son saying, okay, this is my expectation of you. And all you got to do is those 3 things. Like, and talk to somebody. And it's just starting with talking to someone and getting to know people.
I love that example that you used because, coming out of COVID, a lot of us have noticed that the social isolation really had a detrimental effect on the youth and children. And, their heads are constantly in their phones and they have a hard time with socialization. And so I think many of us are very intentional about wanting our children to make friends and socialize because we understand the benefit of it. But what you just said kind of is like a light bulb went off. Well, if it's important for our kids, it's also important for us. So some of the same things that we do to encourage our children or our nieces or nephews or the youth that we're around to connect socially are some of the same things that we can do for ourselves. So just like you said, go into an environment, meet 3 people that you've never met before and learn something new about them. That's something that we can use also to kind of find those commonalities and start to create friendships. So awesome, awesome. I love it. Now, you also made it seem like, well, when you're in an environment and you're like-minded, um, it's easy. I think that that's the foundation. The foundation is there, but a lot of us, myself included, get so busy that we meet people and we feel like, oh my gosh, we have so much in common. We would be great friends. And you want to maintain the relationship, but life just starts lifing. So, what is it that you do that may be different from what the rest of us do that you're able to kind of not just let that not just let it end at meeting somebody and thinking that they would be a great friend, but you actually kind of invest and do the work to let it blossom into a true friendship.
Um, well, one thing I did last December was I hosted a book exchange at my house,
Mhm.
and I reached local connections, so in-person connection. So we also kind of live in this space of kind of transitioning from COVID back to kind of normal, like, being more in person with things. Um, we kind of lost, for me anyway, I kind of lost some of the more local interaction, and it became more national, right? Or like through virtual relationships. And so kind of focusing a little bit more on the local in person more recently has been like a priority for me, because I need the in person. Like there's no substitute for it. Like I do a lot of Zooms and things like that, but the in person connection is so critical. So, and I like to exercise, and I'm also very like frugal right now, and I'm very like fiscally responsible because I have big financial goals. So for me, I can't really go out and spend a lot of money socializing. So the things how I have to socialize with people has to be like very creative. So like I do a lot, I exercise a lot with people. Like I have a lot of workout buddies. Like we're like, we'll go to the park and walk, or we'll go and run. We'll go to a yoga class. We'll go to lift weights. We're just very like active. I tend to be very active in my relationships. And I think some people might like that because they want to move more. And so it kind of helps them. And I find when you're moving, especially when you're walking, and you just like, you talked about vulnerability, like allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I feel like the movement of walking, the movement of running is almost like a walking, running meditation. And you get to connect with people at a very deeper level when you are moving with them and talking to them. And so I enjoy working out with people as a form of like socialization.
I absolutely love that. And if anybody has, I mean, I'm like, as I'm listening to Sharanda, all of these amazing questions are coming up. If anybody who's listening has a question, feel free to type it in the chat. Um, I love what you said, because when I thought about, you know, socializing with walking and socializing with movement, I'm thinking, oh, okay, you're kind of like killing two birds with one stone, right? You need to walk, you need to exercise, and you can do it with a friend, and it also gives you motivation. But I never thought about what you just said, that when you're moving with somebody, you're able to connect on a deeper level, right? And that is so true, because it's an energetic connection that you have there, and you're on kind of like the same vibration of health and want and positivity and the meditation. And so it makes sense that you can even develop the friendship and the bonds of friendship um, even faster if you're doing that type of activity. So that is that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Now, one of the other things, I was recently talking to someone who is a friend that I kind of lost contact with, because that happens too, right? We're so busy, and we were reconnecting. And one of the things that she shared is that she, fairly recently went through a divorce. And sometimes she feels like a lot of the friends that she had when she was married are no longer the friendship has changed. And then some of the friends have, spend more time with her ex, and some of them might spend more time with her. But sometimes when you are coupled, the relationship status can come in, can make friendships complicated, because either you want your spouse to be friends with their spouse, or you want your partner to like this new friend that you have. So do you have any words of advice around that? Or your new friend is coupled and you're not, but any words of advice around that? And have you found that to be an additional complication that some of us over the age of 40 have to deal with?
Well, one, there were like so many different things in that question, but one thing was the person you connected with a person after a long time. So like that is something that happens too with friendships. Like sometimes there is a person that we had a very close relationship with 20 years ago, and we lost touch with each other. But we were like road dogs, like we would do everything together because we were in that stage of life. Because a lot of friendships are kind of formed from the stage of life that you're in. So you end up having a lot of mom friends when you start having kids, and because you meet you're spending a lot of time doing children activities, you're hanging out with the same, they almost choose your friends because you're like, they, whoever they're hanging out with, that tends to be like your mom friend, and things like that, right? So that's kind of like stage of life. So that person is connecting with people that she hadn't connected with in a long time. And I do that too. That's part of my like relationship, cultivation, is connecting with people, particularly if, like I said, like the in-person connection. So I might have a friend who, like, I just met up with a friend. I went to Columbia University. She was in town for a conference, and in Baltimore. I don't live far from Baltimore. So I drove up to Baltimore to see her. I hadn't seen her in 20 years. But because we connected, and guess what? Time is just like, time is relative. So we talked, like we talked for 2 hours, and it felt like we had just seen each other yesterday after like all that time. And I hope it's not another like 20 years before I get to connect with her again. So that's kind of just like one thing, to like connecting with people that you may have lost contact with, and maybe just check on your friend. And then there might be opportunities for you to kind of meet up with each other, because one may be traveling in the city near you are. The other thing about like, going through a divorce. So I also went through a divorce recently, and within the last 5 years. So your identity is attached to you being that person with the other person, because you're kind of, when you're married, you kind of become, become one. So your identity changes because you've been separated from that individual. So you go through a lot of identity kind of changes too. So just like kind of feel that out. I feel like you kind of just got like, like it's like a very emotional kind of thing to go through a divorce. So all of it is about emotional management and you got to give yourself grace, and also just kind of you got to be a friend to yourself. Like before you can be a friend to anybody else, you got to be a friend to you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You have to be a friend to yourself. And we have a question, and I'm just going to ask you. It says, what tips can you give in developing healthy relationships and also dealing with unrealistic expectations from a friend? And I think that is, that is a great question right there, because I think a lot of times it gets really sticky when your expectations for friendship is different than somebody else's expectation, or you feel like you're meeting the bar of friendship differently than somebody else is.
So, I think healthy environments are really important to overall well-being. And a key piece of your environment are the people that you hang with. So there's like the saying about the 5 closest people that you spend the most time with, like really, who are they? And then there's like so many different kind of statistics that align with, you tend to have the same kind of money, the income, you might be around the same weight. Like it's a lot of different things because you have a lot of the same habits. So, like sometimes you really got to look at your environment and say, is this a healthy environment or is this not a healthy environment? Like, is there some toxic things around this that are, when I say toxic, I mean, it may be triggering you with some very negative emotions that are difficult for you to manage. And then you result to, overeating, alcohol use, different things in a negative way to manage that stress, right? So it's like, okay, well, like what are we dealing with here, right? So like I think that's really important. And then I just believe in radical personal responsibility. Like, what is it about me? I can't control anybody else. I can control myself as much as I can, and sometimes I have a hard time doing that. Okay, so I do my best. All right, but I can't control other people, so I just kind of got to look at what part do I play in it. I'm always learning from other people. I kind of just have like, what can I learn from the situation? even if it didn't go the way that I intended it to go, there is a lesson in it for me to learn, and it will keep repeating itself until I learn it.
Hmm. What one of the things, there's a quote, and I don't know why I can't remember the person who quoted it, but if I say the name, you'll recognize it. But the quote is that expectations are um, basically that expectations are the greatest cause of heartache. That when we have expectations, that's what leads to most of the heartache that we experience. And so, one of the things that I talk about a lot with my clients is releasing expectations, right? And I know it's hard because, on the one hand, we want to have strong boundaries and we don't want to allow people to walk all over us or mistreat us. But if you think about it, if we release expectations, maybe we set intentions. So my intention for this relationship is that we would both spend time together and bring joy into each other's lives and have be able to laugh and have things that are positive and uplifting. That's different than expecting them to call you, once or twice a week, expecting them to know what you need when you're sad or when you're down. So I think that if we move a little bit from what we expect from another person to just setting intentions for the relationship, it helps us to not be as disappointed when someone doesn't kind of meet our expectations.
And the other thing I would say, maybe like even setting boundaries, like that's something that I struggle with and been focusing on, of setting boundaries. And if there is something like for example, if the person is late and that really bothers you, like, just you got to say, like, you're late. If you're late, then we're not meeting again. Like, you got to set some like kind of consequence for it. Like, so if it really bothers you, you kind of got to let the person know, like an agreement, right? You got to kind of go into an agreement. Like, I expect you to be on time when we meet. And if you are more than X number of minutes late, then I'm moving on to the next thing or whatever, so you kind of like, if that's a problem with somebody, I think that's like a good strategy.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, so this is probably a good segue to go back to our quote. So the quote that I read in the beginning really talks about vulnerability. And I think that in order to have friendships, there has to be some vulnerability. And a lot of times as we get older, we are less comfortable being vulnerable. I think when we're young, we're kind of growing together, and it may be a little bit easier to be vulnerable. Do you have any tips on how we can become vulnerable enough to be able to really bond and connect with people? Because one of the things that Brene Brown always says is that vulnerability connects. And I believe that it does. When we're vulnerable, it helps us connect to other people.
I think that people who spend a lot of time in a personal development space, who you mentioned Brene Brown, and listening to podcasts or reading books or different things like that, I think that can help. The more you become like aware of human growth and human potential and human nature, and just there are just some characteristics here. Like, the more you kind of learn these kind of things, I think they could be useful to you. So like I read 10 pages of personal development every day, sometimes more, but at least 10 pages.
Hmm.
So there are things that you can do, I think, just to kind of develop as a person that could be useful.
Hmm. Awesome. Awesome. I think that's a great suggestion. Uh, so, research shows that the most common reason why people struggle to connect with others is due to a lack of trust, which is kind of goes hand in hand with vulnerability. And it's harder than ever for people to find friends that they can fully invest in emotionally and mentally. And I think this goes back to the question about people not meeting up to your expectations. Because after you've had several people not meet your expectations, it it causes you to mistrust that anyone will be able to do this. So Do you have, I love that you're giving us a lots of examples, but do you have any stories where you took a risk to trust somebody and it turned out well? Because I think sometimes we count people out once we've experienced, once we've had a bad experience. So I just was curious if you had any experiences where you kind of took the risk, took the leap to kind of trust, and it worked out well in a friendship.
Like so many times. Like it happened like so many times. Like I am just like I make friends a lot really easily like now. Like I didn't I know, and maybe I did at different points in my life, and then I kind of got into the space of being kind of overwhelmed. So I was kind of really overwhelmed with work and raising children, and having a family, responsibilities that were just like really overwhelming to me. So can I? Then I went into a space of isolation, and then
Hmm.
I went into like a space of like when I really kind of started my health journey, and really turned around my physical health and then started working on my mental health, like I just opened up and like really just like started really connecting with people and I learned so much from people. I'm like I pay attention to people, I observe people. So like I'm really into this like learning more about like Eastern medicine right now. So I live in a community with a lot of Asians and I noticed different things that they're from all over like China, Korea, different places. But they're different. I just noticed like they're like a lot of people who I'm stopping and talking to, they're like in their 80s and maybe they don't even have like really good English. But I see them doing things with like picking certain herbs from the park, or I may see them like walking bare feet, or I might see them doing things in the gym with like kind of like it looks like they're doing some things with circulation. I'm curious. Like I want to know because I think you have some secrets that I want to learn about. So I just kind of like see things that are like I'm just curious. I'm just kind of walking around
Hmm.
curious, and it just makes me like I'm just really kind of asking questions. I'm talking
Yeah,
to people, but I'm asking like I'm curious about them. I'm interested in this thing about them, whatever it may be. It's different things with different people. So I can kind of just learn a lot.
yeah, yeah. I love that. And I think you just said that they have some secrets, but I think that that's one of your secrets of making friends is that you are curious and you are interested in other people. And I think when you're authentically interested in other people, people love to share about themselves and people love it when other people are interested in them genuinely. And so I think that that helps to break down that trust thing too and helps other people be vulnerable when you show a genuine authentic interest and curiosity in them. So I think you can add that to your list of secrets.
Okay.
We have another question, and the question is, what about the person who betrayed your trust? How do you let go of the guilt of trusting the wrong individual?
So letting go. Let's just take that. Letting go. There's a whole thing. If you Tit Chow, I think I might have a book. Oh, here it is. I got this one. This okay. I don't know. Can you see this? And I'm gonna
Hmm.
say his name wrong. Tich Nhat Han. But anyway,
Oh yeah.
listen to him with I think that some of the concept that you have like some things related to that because one it's just you're suffering. So he talks about suffering and how to suffer less. So how can we be in a space of suffering less? And then he talks a lot about letting go. And letting go has been hard for me. Like it is a process. And so these are processes. And you're just at different parts of the process. Like what I know today, I'll look back a year from now and say, what was I thinking? Like you just don't do that. It's like you're thinking you're good right now, but you look back and you like it's just like they're little tweaks, right? Because you're constantly kind of improving. But letting go, it can be letting go of stuff. Like how much stuff are you holding on to that you do not use?
Hmm.
Like you probably use only 20% of the stuff. and you got all this stuff. Like, can you get rid of 80%? Like things like that. Like it's like stuff, getting rid of stuff. It may be, getting rid of like that you can't, maybe it's a control. I don't know what it is. It could be a lot of different things. So, but letting go is a lot. I would say study it. There are people who write about it, and there are tips for it, and it is a practice. All of these things are practices. Like, you are practicing making friends. You are practicing letting go. You are practicing setting boundaries. I'm practicing presenting to you today. Like, it's all practice, because it's something else is going to happen next. So it's just
Yeah.
practice for the next thing.
Yeah, I love that. When I became a doctor, my uncle used to always say, the practice of medicine. He's like, that was scary to him, because he's like, why are you practicing? Shouldn't you be an expert? And you have the knowledge and you are an expert, but every patient is different. Every encounter is different. So it's a continual practice of whatever you're doing. So I like the concept of framing it as a practice. And with the person that betrayed your trust, I think that goes back to what you were talking about with boundaries, right? Forgiving somebody and letting go of the hurt and the pain doesn't mean that you let them back into your space. If they are toxic, like you said before, and they are not good for you, then you can forgive them and release the pain and the guilt without letting them back into your space. Your space is sacred, and that's for people who are going to bring positive energy into it. So this question is probably a little bit selfish, because I am an introvert, right? And so, for those of us who are introverts, it can feel like it requires a lot of energy to invest in new friendships and to maintain our existing friendships, especially when you have families and careers that take up a lot of energy. You're in a career where you put out a lot of energy. So, um, but it's important. Like we said before, it's important. And, research shows that when you have good friendships, it doubles your chances of recovering from depression. It can boost your ability to be empathetic. Friendship brings happiness into our lives and gives us different perspectives. And for us as Black women, um, friendship helps us deal with a lot of the things we have to deal with in society, whether it's microaggressions or racism or sexism. And friendship and sisterhood is just really important. It gives us social affirmation and affiliation. So it's very important. But sometimes some of us feel like we don't have the energy. So with a limited supply of energy, what can we do? How can we make time, make space, have energy to invest in these friendships that are so important in our lives?
I mean, I think it's like, if you can build it into something that already exists, like, it's easier, right? So if you, like, for me, I know I have to work out. Like, I work out every day. So it's easy for me to just meet up with someone to work out with. It makes it more fun, and I've got to do it anyway. So, like, I don't know if you have to go to soccer practice for your kids. Maybe it's talking to the other parents who are in the stands. Hello, how about that? Like, hey, let's get to know each other here. Our kids spend a lot of time together. Like, maybe it's just talking to them, like, maybe just like in ways that you can already incorporate into your life. If that's something you're really interested in. And I think, like, some of us, and I've been part of like organizations, and I feel isolated because I isolated myself. So maybe it's like, in those settings, just trying to find, like, in an organization you might belong to, one or two people that you can kind of like be, it's not necessarily about quantity, it's about quality, right? So,
Mhm.
and one of the things that I do as a health coach, I am helping people with their health span and their lifespan. So I want to help people to live longer lives, but I also want them to have good quality of life. at the end of their life. And I want them to physically take care of themselves. I want them to emotionally take care of themselves. And we know things about longevity. We know that the people who are Satarians are in communities. They have been a part of communities. They have purpose. They are like, they are, a lot of them are even cared for by family members. Like, so community and friendships is for good health. Like, you can look at that, like when you say like it's medicine, right? Like, a good laugh or good friendship, it's like good medicine. Like, if you look at it like it's something, instead of like some people feel guilty about it, but what if you reframe the way you think about it? What if it's good for you to, have connections with friends and be a part of community? It's good for your well-being. It's good for your health. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your emotional health. And if it's in a healthy way, it could be also good for your physical health, depending on what you're doing. So like all those kinds of things, like maybe that might help some people.
And I'm so glad that you sort of put this into the context of you being a health coach, because I was talking about, energy, and sometimes, feeling like I don't have enough energy to invest in friendships. But one of the things that I've noticed is that when you are living a healthy lifestyle, you have more energy overall. And so you have more overflow of energy to invest in friendships. So I would love for you to just give us some tips from a health coach perspective on how we can increase our energy by living a healthier lifestyle. What are some practical things we can do?
So I'm kind of on this. So the one of the things that I do on the health program, we start a lot with nutrition. So what you're putting in your body, but exercise is also a big piece of things too, like movement and moving your body. You could do it with someone. Um, I think even drinking your water. It sounds so simple, but water helps with so many functions. Your organs to function. It does so many different things in your body. Like the functionality of water in your system does so much, and there's so many benefits like clarity. Um, you know, you you also don't want to eat as much, different things like that, right? But even just like the clarity, like some of us are like walking around in a fog. We are in autopilot. We are letting life happen to us. We are not like, like really like enjoying life and being present for life. And so, I'm just kind of like want people to, sometimes you just got to start with your physical health, like the nutrition piece of it, and realize how you are hurting yourself by putting bad things into your body. So really getting the nutrition under control, the hydration, and then starting to do all the other kind of emotional management stuff, which like exercise helps with it. But exercise has so many different benefits. Getting outdoors, like there are these different things that you can do to shift your mood. Even standing up and dancing, like can use, or smiling, just smiling can shift your mood. But Stephanie, you and I went out for a walk last Friday. It was hot. It was 7:30, and on a very hot day. I think it was probably like 95 degrees, something like that, right? I think we both probably were tired and probably would, like, if one of us had called and said, you know what, I don't want to, I just want to be in air conditioning. But when I got out there, I got more energy.
Yep.
But I was excited to see you. And so you gave me energy just being with you. And then we just started moving. And then before we know it, it was like we had already walked for 45 minutes. And it completely
Absolutely.
changed the energy level.
Absolutely. I was so invigorated after that walk, and I was nervous going into it because, you are an exercise guru. You exercise all the time. I tend to walk my dog and I do some low impact stuff. And so I was like, I don't know if I'll be able to hang with Sheranda out here at 95 degrees, and being able to get through that walk and having such a great conversation. Not only did I feel invigorated energetically, but I felt good about myself. It boosted my self-esteem. It boosted my endorphins because I had accomplished something. So, and it gave us a time to connect as well. So yeah, lots of benefits. So as we're starting to wrap up, last two questions. One of them is how, as a health coach, how do you work with people to help them be more healthy? You gave us some tips about how we can be more healthy, but how do you work with people to help them to be more healthy? And then, so that's the first question.
So I do a lot of different things. One, I do one-on-one health coaching, where I do meet with my clients. I do offer I coach through a program for my nutrition. And there are lots of different webinars and community kind of coaching that happens within that space. I also do like webinars and seminars. I organize like community fitness events, like a lot of walks and different things like that. I am speaking to groups of people, speaking on topics about, I'm about saving lives. I'm about helping people prevent chronic illnesses. I'm about combating obesity through lifestyle changes. I'm about fighting chronic diseases through lifestyle changes, habit formation, and helping people to develop healthy habits. And it is an ongoing journey. You do not get to a place and it is done. You have to wake up the next day and keep doing, your best the next day. It's just does not stop. So like that's the main thing to tell people. And you will get off track and you will have to reset. It's about recovery. Like how quickly can you recover? It's like kind of like how athletes are. Athletes go through a lot. They put their bodies through a lot and they have to go through a process of recovery. So how quickly can I recover when I've had a setback? And how can I continuously kind of monitor this thing and be vigilant about it? And I think that's the place where I have to help people with the most, like that it's okay that you have like you can kind of get back on track with things. So that's just kind of one thing I just want to mention to folks. Like it's just like we're growing. It's also about us taking care of our future self. So what we do now in our 50s, we're really taking care of like our 90-year-old selves. So the muscle mass that we build today will help us with our balance and our bone density, all of that, so that when we get to be 70, 80 years old, what kind of 70, 80-year-old do you want to be? And hopefully we can make it there, because some of us will not. Okay, some of us will not, and there's a variety of reasons, but some of these reasons are things that, for me, I was eating too much. I was eating the wrong things. I was eating too much, and I was drinking too much wine. I mean, no, okay, like I had to stop it. Like it was not gonna, like if I kept doing those things, I was gonna be on a path to disease. I was going to be pre-diabetic. I was already pre-diabetic. I was going to be diabetic. And then that whole, like, whatever, all the things that are, that happen as a result of that. So I had to change the dynamic. I had to stop the onset of the disease. So I had to make lifestyle changes. That helped me to get myself on a different trajectory.
Yeah. Such amazing work. I mean, you have an amazing testimony of what you were able to do. I think you lost like 70 pounds or something.
Initially I lost 80 pounds. Okay. And I did it in 8 months. So I did about, on average, 10 pounds per month. So it was like over a period, over 8-month period. But, it was a very different, where I was one summer and where I looked physically the next summer was totally different. Yeah. So then you have you have the physical transformation, and then you kind of start to really develop the mental things, because you have to kind of deal with the mindset stuff, because the physical was just a symptom.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the final question that I ask all of my guests on this podcast is because I think that a lot of times we want to do those things, and you talked about the mindset, but sometimes we have these beliefs that limit us. So what limiting beliefs did you have to overcome, specifically to get curious and to, you said you went from a period of isolation to a period where you were developing new friendships and you were open to meeting new people. What limiting beliefs did you have to get over in order to get to that point where you were ready to make new friends and invest in friendship?
I kind of just went through an identity, just a really identity, reimagining my identity. Like I went through a lot of different, like my name changed. I got a divorce. I went from being an overweight person to being a marathoner. Like a lot of things that I became, like I was married for 18 years. I became a single mother, like so many different kind of changes. Right. So, you just have to, like, it's okay to reimagine yourself, and your past does not have to dictate your future. And you can dream again. You can be awakened no matter what age you are. I know people who start running marathons at age 50. Like you can do whatever you set your mind to do.
Love it. I love it. So we can reimagine ourselves with healthy friendships that are, I think, where you're not the only person giving. I think a lot of times I talk to people about friendships and they have these friendships that are draining their energy because some people are just needy and they take, 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 take. So start with reimagining yourself surrounded by friends who are pouring into you as much as you're pouring into them. um, Reimagine what it looks like to be curious and to be open to meeting new people, to be vulnerable and to trust. And then take one small baby step every day to do that, whether it's, talking to somebody at your kid's soccer game, like Sheranda suggested, or when you're in an environment with new people, being intentional about seeking out one, two, or three new people and learning something new about them, and then following up. I think the follow up, they always say the fortune is in the follow up in business, but I think it's the same way in friendship. The fortune is in the follow up. So thank you, Sheranda. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I learned a lot, and I think that all of our listeners have learned a lot, and it's just been um, a wonderful space to celebrate the beauty of friendship, the beauty of health. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, Stephanie. I'm so glad you're my friend.
I'm glad you're
And
my
I'm glad
friend
I met
too.
so many friends through you. Like I met so many people through your retreats. So thank you for having them and providing a space for us to connect.
Yes, yes, awesome. Well, good night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thank you to everybody who joined us. You have a wonderful weekend too. Good night.
Sisters, come together now, come together now. It's time to help each other out, help each other out. It's time for transformation.